All right. Hello and welcome to our extended disc mini webinar. It's a mouthful, the title. Today is Tools to Help Build Compassion at Work and at Home. It's a little bit of a it's not as concrete a topic as reading profiles or exploring diamonds, but it's something that I think Wilma and I decided is really kind of important to address at this point in time. So it will be recorded. If you miss any of it, or if you'd like to share it with any of your colleagues or anybody, it will be posted on our YouTube channel. My name is Christina Bowser, and I am the training director here at Extended Disc. And joining me today, no pressure, she is wonderful though, is Wilma Stevens, my colleague and senior trainer at Extended Disc. Hi, Wilma.
Christina. You know, it was really interesting. Christina and I were talking about this, and we kept focusing on gratitude, right? And then 20 minutes before, we said, yes, but we're really talking about compassion.
Yeah.
I always think, like, we are 14 months into 2020, and if compassion isn't the word of the day, I'm not sure what is. And I think that one of the things when we're talking about this, one of the things you and I were just talking about is self-awareness. Are we very aware of our compassion muscle? Compassion, like gratitude, operates like a verb, right? And I always feel that we need to take these verbs out and exercise them, not only with all those around us, but with ourselves, right? And you know, currently we are in a pandemic still. Currently we live in Houston. We've just come again out of Snowmageddon and the Arctic blast. And we have seen so many examples of compassion.
And for me, compassion, being the verb, how does it tie? Why are we talking about it here at Extended Disc, right? Wilma, hit upon the self-awareness. For some of us, it sometimes is very easy to continue to think about other people and express ourselves in different ways. For others, we express ourselves in not necessarily in language, but we express ourselves in action. I think about my father, who he never really says I love you, but he'll feed you. Like, that's his way of telling me he loves me, right? And in terms of compassion, again, for my father, it's his act of doing something. That's his way of telling me, I understand you're having a hard time, let me cook for you. I understand you're having a hard time, let's go for a walk. So it's not about, compassion isn't in the sense that you have to actually write a letter or say something out loud, but it can be an act of doing something, right? So keep it present, as Wilma said. It's something that we need to practice daily. We need to be consciously aware of it. And that's part of what DISC helps us do. It just is something that constantly reminds us that, these are things that we are comfortable doing, and these are things that we are not comfortable doing. Do the things you're comfortable with, because when we are on the receiving end, when somebody is compassionate for us, it doesn't matter how they do it. We still feel it, right? It's still a positive response when people show us compassion.
I think what you're meaning too here is that, firstly, if we talk about languages of love, right? Like, how do you feel that? Your dad does it in those acts. Food is love. When you talk about this, when we bring it to DISC, we're always talking about behaviors with DISC, right? Our behavior. And compassion is a behavior. And what you've just said is that when we are expressing compassion, just do it. It's not a right or wrong. And I think that we're always talking about, in DISC, we do this thing about words or attributes that we associate with a style. Like, we always use the example, competitive, that our D's are overtly competitive. And then we talk about, and so are our I's, and so are our S, and so are our C's. Well, compassion is the same way. All DISC styles demonstrate compassion. And all DISC styles uh, like to be on the receiving end. I think really one of the things that you and I were talking about, Christine, is that practicing compassion, sometimes we leave ourselves out of the conversation, right? We're not as ready to give ourselves a break. We are not as ready to exercise that. Our little inner critic sometimes jumps in and takes over. When you would never speak to a friend like your inner critic speaks to you, right? Well, I would say practicing compassion uh, towards yourself and towards others will make you more productive, just like practicing gratitude. It's a longer lasting positive feedback loop that will be generated. Um, and you deserve it. That's the other part about this. You deserve to practice some self compassion. And, you know, when we talk about our spouse, or if the title says at home, or our kids, quite often I think that we often find what's broken, right? What didn't happen, what they didn't do. We got to flip that 180 degrees and start to acknowledge in a way of like what they did do, what was wonderful, um, giving them a break, giving everybody a break. And I want to put you at the front of the list, giving yourself a break. Compassion is a verb. And I always encourage people, get that verb out and exercise it with yourself and with others.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to where DISC is not going to teach us really anything that we don't already know, right? We have an understanding of ourselves. We can sometimes gauge other people, and we make adjustments in our life. However, where we sometimes fall short or we get into trouble is that we don't do it consistently. And I know my style, being an S style. I'm that one that, I like to give support to others. I like to help others. I like to be, use my S style emotions to be compassionate, right? And I really do try hard. And part of it is actually quite easy for me. But the part that Wilma addressed is kind of a light bulb for me. It's like I need to sometimes, knowing my style, take that breath, that pause, and to remind myself, be kind to myself, because that's not something I naturally do. Like I'm that yes person. You ask me something, I'm going to do it, even if I can't do it, or even if it's one more thing that adds to, this colossal thing that I'm trying to manage. I will do it. So, you know, you think about my dad, who is not an emotional style whatsoever. He shows in action, and myself, I'm an emotional style, but I'm a more reserved emotional style. And so I am really into, supporting my family and my friends and my colleagues. So DISC, again, just helps you to practice the things that you do well, and also to see the differences in others. And the differences are not good or bad, it's just that they do things differently, and to try to focus more on the positives and to acknowledge them. So we say here, pay it forward. When you are able to be compassionate, it comes around full circle. It may not come around at that moment, but I guarantee you down the road it will come back. It's good karma, we say.
I think one of the things that can happen is, we all want to be compassionate. We all want to be um, grateful and practice these things. And sometimes it's hard to get started. We're busy little doers. So I think that one of the first things that we have to do is set an intention. Set an intention about compassion. We can think about this in advance, just like you might think of an adjustment. in advance, right? Uh, but start to be aware when you are being compassionate and when you're not. There are spontaneous times where it's easy to be compassionate. Like we just said, we had a big Arctic frost in Texas. Our neighbors' pipes were bursting. We were out there helping. It was an easy, obvious way to be compassionate. Get some extra blankets out to organizations that are handing out blankets. These were easy ways to be compassionate. We also have to think about, are we missing things? Just like when you're making an adjustment, are you missing opportunities to be compassionate? Uh, and remember, if that's the case, you may not be as sensitive to the ones you live with or those that you work with, right? You could have some carnage in that wake behind you that you're not quite aware of. Um, when it
Yeah,
says,
I think just to add on to what Wilma is saying is that when we are in our most comfortable zone, which is typically our work area and our home life, um, and then we have these added, things like a pandemic and the snowmageddon. We have all these heightened emotions, or we're just fatigued. We're just overwhelmed, and we don't have that same ability to adjust. And that's where, bringing it back just to a really practical level, this can help you out. It just simply reminds you, try something, try saying something positive. And you know what? If it didn't work exactly the way you intended, that's okay. Try again. Think about, not only what did I do well today, but what did my colleague do well today? What did my, son do well today? And if they're having a hard day, how can I help them? This can help you understand what motivates your family member, what motivates your colleagues. And if it's something as simple as, picking up a phone, or, writing a little note saying, I see you're having a hard day. Would you want to talk, or give me a call? It just reminds you that it takes a little more effort, but the reward is phenomenal.
I think sometimes when we're coaching people and working with people, I've often heard this back. Yeah, Wilma, I'm just not built like that. I will tell you that's an excuse. That is an excuse. I'm not built like that. It will not come off authentic. Well, then find something that does sound authentic. Maybe you're not verbose in the verbal sharing of a compassionate message, but maybe you write a little note. Hey, I'm here to help. Or maybe you try to be a better listener. These are all
Or you do something. For some of us, we're very action oriented. We show our compassion by, showing up with a loaf of bread, or, helping them dig out the snow, or
bring your
just
hair dryer.
yeah, waving hello, stopping for a moment. So I think, again, bringing it back to DISC is, as Wilma says, compassion is an action, it's a behavior. And how we show compassion is different sometimes, just based on who we are, but there's no one on the receiving end that is going to deny it. And just equally as important, we need to be compassionate when it comes to ourselves as well.
I like games. I love games. So one of the things that I like to do sometimes is uh, collect data. And I would like to challenge everyone out there listening to have a little data collection on moments that you're practicing compassion and moments that you're practicing self-compassion. See when it shows up, see when it's happening. Bringing awareness to your behaviors is the way we climb up that emotional intelligence ladder. And that's always what we are cheering on for you, is that you continue to grow. Being compassionate, if you do not think it's your jam, that it's authentic, I would encourage you to try different ways, as Christina just said. Maybe it's an act, and maybe it's, you do something. Maybe you say something. Maybe you write something. Maybe you pick up the phone and call somebody. You text somebody. But start. Action is the answer to everything. It gets started. I will tell you, the other thing is that it feels good. It's like gratitude. Compassion feels good. Uh, and remember, we can't only be good at giving this, we also have to be gracious at receiving, right? So when somebody else is offering compassion, so show that grace and receive it in a nice, honest way. Thank you. With the
It
thank
keeps you in the moment. So I hope that we shared just some of our thoughts. There's no right or wrong, just like DISC. Hopefully, we'll go ourselves be more compassionate, especially to our spouses.
Remember, month 14 in 2020, compassion and self-compassion has got to be the word of the day.
Yep. And what you said, there's a colleague day or
Oh yes, I was going to tell you that. Yes, really, always first Friday of March, at like around the world is really Employee Appreciation Day. It's like an easiest opportunity to have a good excuse to get out there, acknowledge, be grateful, share your appreciation, be compassionate and generous in your messaging. But yes, I think that's March 5th, but it's the first Friday of March.
Well, thank you guys all for joining us. We do have a webinar tomorrow. You'll get to see Wilma again. It is step 2 of the 4 steps to effective interactions. It's about understanding yourself, a little bit of what we talked about today. It'll be 10 a.m. in the morning. It'll be an hour long. And if you need SHRM or HRCI recertification units, we got you covered. So thank you guys again for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm grateful that you guys joined us today. Yes.
Be nice to yourself. Bye now.